Hi, Ashok. How are you?
Good morning, Jonah.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you.
One second, we're just sorting out the sound. Can you say something, Jonah, please?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
You can hear me.
You can hear me fine?
No, don't have the sound protection on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you speak out again, Jonah?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear now.
All right. All right. Perfect. And I can
Okay.
only see you and Pierre. I can't see
Yeah,
anyone
I,
else. I
I,
don't
I,
know if it's possible.
I will just adjust the background. Uh, one second.
There we go.
Right.
Okay, now I see Lars. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey,
All
everybody.
right.
Great. Good to see you all. All right. Okay, so what time is it there? 9 a.m. Is that what you said?
Yes, 9 a.m. Sharp.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, great. Well, it is.
Joining us and coming in to motivate us. We're all excited. Over to you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. It's my honor, and it is 9:30 p.m. here on Saturday, and yeah, the boys are asleep, and Brooke is already asleep. So it's just me. It's just me up right now. So this is fun. This is good. But I will say, this is much better than one time Nick House of the UK asked me to speak, and he had done some favors for me. So he said, "Hey, I've got to cash in on the favors because I said I'll do anything. Just let me know if I can do anything." And he had me do a speech. I think it was 3 a.m. My time. So this is much better than that. I woke up about 2:30, had to shower, get ready, do a speech, and then I went right back to bed after after that. So this is much better than that. This is easy. At least I was already up. So I'm happy to be here. And wish I could be with you all in person. Hopefully, I'll see all of you in San Antonio in 2025 in April. We're really looking forward to that event. We've got a lot of great things planned. So really excited for that. Ashok, is it okay if I share my screen?
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Can people see my slideshow?
Yeah.
Okay, everyone can see that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm really excited to be with all of you today, and I just love both of these teams. One thing I think that's, you're in two different parts of the world, but there's so many consistencies in the groups that are represented here. Just there's a sense of family and unity and camaraderie in these two teams that we would tell anyone to look at either of your teams and try to say, form your team based off of how they do theirs. And so we are very just thankful for the work that you all are doing, and especially to Ashok and Pierre, and for what you're doing, and also, of course, now Sandeep being in the role of master licensee as well. We're just so thankful for the leadership that you all are doing and the great teams there. So today, what I wanted to talk about was it's going to come down to sales, right? Because that's why we're together. And if I can get you to do one thing, it's to think about sales in a different way. And that's what I always try to do, right? So if you've heard my talks before, you know that I love a good metaphor that you can remember when you wake up in the morning and it's about time to start selling, time to start setting appointments or something like that. Something you can do to remember, okay, this is what I'm doing today. So I've done, the dojo training, or I've done tug of war, or whatever it might be. But today I kind of wanted to go back to something even more primal than maybe fighting in a dojo or tug of war, which is farming, which has been around since probably the beginning of time to some extent, is farming and tending the ground and tending the soil. And what I wanted to do is kind of talk about some basic rules of farming. And we're going to tie this back into sales, but I wanted to talk about a few things that I am not a farmer. I did not grow up on a farm. I'm pretty much a city boy. You know, I have cowboy boots because I'm in Texas, but I'm not much of a cowboy, sadly. So, but I do know a little bit about farming, and I think all of the things I'm about to share, even if you're not a farmer, you would know these things to be true. And I think when we tie it back into sales, we'll be able to say that even if you're not in sales, you would say, well, yeah, I hope a good salesperson would do all of these things. But what we find is that even the best salespeople will sometimes forget to do these things. And so that is the purpose of this talk today, is to point out some basics that I think we forget sometimes, or maybe we overlook, and they're vitally important. So let's start with just some basic rules of farming. So here's a basic one. Number one, you nurse the plants until they grow from a seed to the harvest, right? So you plant the seeds, and then some need more water than others, some need more sunlight than others, and then you watch them until they're ready for harvest, right? And they all need to be fed something. They all grow at different speeds, but at some point it's ready for them to be harvested, right? And so they have different values, different sizes, different shapes, different things to feed them, all those kinds of things. But no matter what, whatever you plant, you have to nurse that plant until it goes from a seed until it's ready to be harvested, right? That's like farming 101. That's what we're doing. If you don't feed it, it will not grow. Another basic rule of farming is you remove weeds and invasive species. So if you start seeing weeds pop up in your yard or in your garden or in your land when you're farming or something like that, you better get those out, because those weeds are going to absorb a lot of water, a lot of resources that should be going to what you're trying to grow. And what they're going to do is they're going to be really selfish with that water or that food or whatever you're giving them. It's going to absorb it, and the weeds are going to grow really fast, sometimes where they're even bigger than the crop that you planted. And all of a sudden, it's going to start killing your crops. The weeds are going to start killing your crops. And you never planted the weeds. They just kind of show up because you didn't pay attention to them. So you may see a little weed sprout up, a tiny little weed. And you say, well, just leave it. It's not a big deal. I'll come back next week and get it. By the time you come back next week, who knows what that root system has done? Maybe it's stretched its way into some of the other crops and those kinds of things. And if you would have just pulled it at the very beginning, not let it spread, you wouldn't have had to worry about it. And think about invasive species as well, right? Yeah, there are invasive species that you wouldn't think are invasive, like a little bunny rabbit, right? Like who doesn't love a cute little fluffy bunny rabbit, right? Its little tail, and it looks so sweet and all those things. But if you let a rabbit into your garden, it will eat your crops. So there are things that look harmless, like a snail. Like a snail, what is a snail going to do? If you leave snails in your garden, they're going to eat through your crops over time. Squirrels, if you let squirrels in, if you leave rabbits, all those kinds of things, these little things, you don't think they're anything big, but if you leave them and let them grow and let them feed, they'll eat their way through what you're trying to nurse and what you're trying to grow. So we'll come back to that later as well. Of course, you never ignore your crops or only focus on one of them. So let's say I planted, 10,000 stalks of corn, right? How dumb would I be if I said, you know what, I'm just going to water one of the stalks right in the middle of the land. I'm just going to leave the other ones. I'm just going to water one of them. That would be foolish. That would make no sense. We're saying I'm going to give all my water on this one little patch right here, these few pieces right here, and the rest are going to get that water from those. No, no, no. You spread it out equally, and you feed all of them very consistently as much as they need, right? So different plants need different water, like we talked about, different levels of water, all those kinds of things, but you do it consistently. You do it consistently. It's kind of like working out. If you said, well, I really want to lose some weight and I really want to get a six pack or something, you don't just go do 1,000 sit-ups one day. It's much better to do 100 sit-ups every day for a year. Just doing 1,000 one time is not going to say, all right, I'm done. No, no, no. It's not a ton of effort one time. It's consistent effort every day that's going to get you the progress that you want to see. It's the same with farming. It's little things every single day. You feed them over and over and over as much as they need. And as more grows and it's time for harvesting, eventually you're going to run out of land. You're going to run out of time to take care of the crops, right? So let's say I started with a tiny little garden, and then that grew and I harvested it. And I said, okay, I want to expand that garden a little bit more. That went well last season. Let's try this next farming season. It's time to plant again and go a little bit bigger. Eventually I'm going to run out of land. So what I can either stop where I am and stop farming, or and be happy with what I grew, or I need to get more land, purchase more land, accumulate more, to plant more. And then if I do that, I also need more farmers because as I have more crops to harvest and to water and to do that every day consistently, eventually I can't do it all. And when it comes to farming, let's say I get sick for a week. You'll never talk to a farmer who has a lot of land who took a whole week off if they're doing it by themselves. They never go on a week-long or a month-long vacation. They've got work to do. They've got to go feed their crops. They've got to go get the water on their crops. They've got to plant things. They've got to move things. They've got to harvest things. And if you want time off, you better start recruiting more farmers out into your fields to help you plant and sow the seeds and also harvest the seeds, right? So these are just some basic things of farming. And so one consistent theme here is that you judge each day not by the harvest that you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. And it's a famous quote that's applied to farming, but it's applied to so many other things as well. It's not about all the harvest that you reap. It's about all the seeds you plant every single day and what's going to come from them. So if I go back through these slides, let's look kind of what we've talked about so far, right? So these are basic rules of farming. Let's say these were basic rules of sales. So how would we apply nursing the plants until they grow from a seed to a harvest, right? If I were to find a lead, would I just leave it and say that's going to grow on its own? I'll just leave it alone. It should be fine. No, of course not. That lead's going to die out. It's going to go cold. Well, let's say I get a new lead and I'm really excited about it for a week. And so I call, I send an email, send a text, I send a message, all these different things. And then I'm like, all right, that's good. We should be good to go. That would be like planting a seed, pouring a bucket of water on it one time, saying, all right, that should be enough water. We're good to go. No, no, no. You've got to nurse that lead until it's ready for harvest, until it's ready to be closed. And if at any time I leave it alone for too long, that's not going to work out. It's just like a farmer. Even if the farmer is ready to take a vacation, they better have someone ready to take care and nurse that seed, nurse that crop until it's ready for harvest. So if you've got a lead going into these holidays coming up and those kinds of things, you're like, well, I'm taking a month off. I'm going away. I've got a vacation coming up. You've got two options. You can either just admit you're going to lose the lead and not make the sale. That's fine. But just be honest with yourself. You're going to lose it. Or you better have someone else come in, or you better have some messages scheduled to be sent to them over time, right? Because if you don't contact a lead for a month or you don't water a plant for a month, it's going to die. That lead's going to go cold, right? So you have to nurse the plants the entire process, nurse the leads the entire process until they grow from a seed until they're ready for harvest. Next, we remove the weeds and invasive species here. What I would say an invasive species is something that looks cute, it looks cuddly, it looks fun, but all it does is suck your resources out of you. That's all it does, right? And so I don't know what that is for you. I don't know what that is. Usually it's something that's good, but it's in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's nothing wrong with a cute little bunny rabbit. If I were to take my 2-year-old son to go see a bunny rabbit for fun, that's a great time for a bunny rabbit when a 2-year-old gets to see it and think, oh my gosh, look at this cute little rabbit. A really bad time for a rabbit is when I have a garden in the backyard and that rabbit goes out there and I don't stop it. So social media, not a bad thing. Now at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. During the day, something like that, probably a bad time when I'm supposed to be making calls. Reading email newsletters, reading articles, really good thing. Doing that first thing in the morning when it's probably my best time to be contacting people or those kinds of things, probably a bad idea. Reading books about sales and those kinds of things, another great idea, really good idea. Something I should be doing during my workday when I could be calling people, having appointments, facilitating, sending messages, those kinds of things, probably a really bad idea. So invasive species are good things at certain times and really bad things at other times. So we have to identify just because something's good doesn't mean it's good 100% of the time. We just had Thanksgiving here in the US. We had a lot of pie, okay? Pie is good sometimes. Cake, good sometimes. If I ate pie and cake every single meal like I did this last couple of days, you would not see me for too much longer at conventions. I would not be allowed to fly anymore because of all the health conditions that would probably come up. It's good sometimes, not all the time. Weeds are the same thing, right? They sprout. We think it's fine. Oh, that's little. It'll go away. That's a problem. That'll go away. They don't go away unless you go and pull those weeds. You have to pull them. So if there's a habit, whether it be a mental habit or a physical one, that you don't like, it may look small, but if you don't pluck it now, it will continue to grow. And that can apply to your personal life as well. Here's a really dark example, but I just want to use an extreme example to show that this applies to everything in life. When you hear about a terrible crime that's been committed, what is the most common thing that the criminal says when they're finally given a chance to testify in court after they've been found guilty? They give an interview or something like that. They say, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I got here. Then they interview the parents of the person. And the parents will say, he never used to be like this. She never used to be like this. I don't know what happened. Well, what happened is they did one little thing, which grew to another thing, which grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, now they're sitting in front of a trial, being convicted of a crime. They're like, how did I get here? How did I get here? That wasn't me 20 years ago. What happened? It's little things that just build up over time. So in our sales journey, it's the same thing, much less dark of a scenario, but it's still true. We let these little things build and build and build. So maybe, I should be starting my calls at 8 a.m. every day. I'm gonna let it go to 8:05 today. I'm a little tired, got a slow start to the morning. Let's do 8:05. Then it's 8:15, and then it's 8:45, and it's 9:30, and then it's 10. Then before you know it, you're making 0 calls before lunch. Before you know, you've got no sales appointment. You look back 5 years down the road and you say, how in the world did I get here? I used to be winning awards at convention, and now I'm not even in the top 5 or top 10 in our country. What happened? That's what happened. It started 5 years back when you started taking 5 minutes extra in the mornings, right? So it's little things. So if we don't like that little weed that's sprouting up, we have to be intentional to go pluck it and pull it out, right? Do not ignore your crops or only focus on one of them. We see this all the time. You've got one really big client that looks really good. You say, I'm going to spend all of my time on this one. I'm going to pour into it. I've got a huge proposal. It's a government-backed proposal. This one's huge. I'm going to go to this one. If this comes in, I'm not going to have to work the rest of the year. It's 200 programs, one client, one contract. Well, what if it falls through? Then what? You wasted all your time on something that never came through. Or what if it does come through and then you have to facilitate that many, right? What about all your other clients? What are they going to do? Who's going to take care of them? You had other clients beforehand. What do you do? So you can't focus on all of them and ignore the others. Yes, sometimes you're going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy on one thing, but you have to feed them all consistently as much as needed. As more grows, eventually you're going to run out of land and time to take care of them, right? Like I talked about previously with farming, same is true of your business. Let's say you've hit 100 programs, 150 programs. You're like, I just don't have time to do this anymore. Or I don't know how I'm going to sell more. I've got too many classes. I don't know what to do with. Well, either decide, okay, that's my max, I'm done. I'm going to retain this business, I'm done. Or continue to do the LMI process, get referrals, get resales. And if you're going to do that, it's time to bring someone else in. So it can be a new recruit. It can be someone else in the business who's just getting started. You say, hey, come work with me. I've got some clients I need to pass on to you. Do some joint sales interviews, some joint facilitations to start, then pass it off to them. Maybe ask for a 10% cut in what they do with that client from then on, whatever you want to do. But you're going to need more land. You're going to need more farmers because you can only facilitate so many programs. You can only take care of so many clients, right? And again, this quote of judge each day, not by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. So plant seeds every day. So we have to focus on less items, right? We can't take care of everything. We're one farmer, we're one person. We can only do so much. And so an example I wanted to give here that's a little out of the farming thing, but I think about my kids, Liam and Drew, they're both under 3 years old. And one thing we found that's so interesting, it's true of all the kids that we know. If I take 100 toys or even 10 or 20 toys and I put them all in a room and I put them in there with a room, they won't play with any of them. They'll grab one for about 30 seconds. They'll go to the other one for about a minute. Then they'll do it. And they don't actually enjoy any of it. They're just like, well, I have to do all of this. Look at all these options. Look at all these things. If we take away all but like 1 or 2 of those toys and just leave one in the room, they will play hard with that toy for like an hour. I've done it with a cardboard box before. Take all the toys out, just put a box in the middle of the room. And they're like, this is the best box I've ever seen. I love this toy. And I'm like, well, you haven't even touched the toy that came in the box, but I'm happy you love the box, right? But it's not about the box or the toy. It's just too many options. And I don't think we ever grow out of that. If we're trying to do 100 things, we're going to do none of them. If we wake up every day and say, these are my goals for today, I'm going to do 1 or 2 things really well, really, really well. We're going to do those things and we will do them well. If we try to do a little bit of everything, we're going to do nothing. That's what's going to happen, right? And so if we want to reduce the items to focus on, then what items should we focus on? So I want you to sum that up in one sentence, and then you decide what fits into that sentence for you. Ashok, tell me when I'm out of time. I've got a little bit more. If you need to cut me off with a hard stop, let me know. But what items should we focus on, right? The way I would sum that up in one sentence is anything that allows you to talk with the person and ask them questions. Those are the items to focus on. Anything that doesn't fall in line with that sentence is something that that can either be eliminated or at least postponed until later. And so the reason I put that second part about asking questions is because I'll see people say, oh yeah, I talk to people all the time. I send messages out to people all the time. I send a huge email list. I send emails out all the time with quotes and articles and research. I post all the time on LinkedIn, all this stuff. And so when you're not having any conversations, you're just talking at people. You're not talking with people. There's a huge difference. So the difference is to talk with people. And so if you're not actually creating a space where questions can be asked by you and answers can be given in return, it's not a conversation. It's at least not a sales conversation, right? And so last slide here. So when we get in those situations of what to ask, what questions should we ask? Not always about their business, not always about, so what are your sales? What are your numbers? How's your team? Those are just easy questions. Because in reality, what's going to get them to buy is something that's personally motivating to them. We have to figure out, again, prime buying mode is what's important to them. So we should be asking about their life, about their goals, their own personal goals for their lives, their desires for their own life and their journey, about their family, about what vacations they take, where do they go, when do they go there, where do they stay, what hobbies do they have? All those kinds of things. People are more than the data that's out there. They're more than the number of employees, the amount of revenue that's received. There's a lot more there. So if we just see a company that says, well, it's 50 to 500 employees, they make this much money, that's a perfect prospect. It may not be. If we have a real conversation with them about their life, about their goals, their family, their vacations, their hobbies, those kinds of things, we'll figure out what's actually a reason that they should buy a program. So tying that all back in to wrap up, every day it's time for you. You have a wide, vast amount of land that you can sow seeds into. Your job is to tend that soil every single day, plant new seeds, take care of the seeds you have, and harvest the crops that are ready to be harvested. But you can't plant every kind of seed. You can't take care of all of it on your own, and you can't harvest something that's not ready to be harvested. It just can't happen. So you have to decide, what are the actions that I'm going to do that are going to allow me to take care of the most seeds every single day. If it's not going to allow me to do that, having conversations where I get to ask questions with people every day, then it's not worth my time. So that's how I would ask you all to sum up action steps moving forward. When you think, what items should I focus on? It's anything that allows you to talk with a person and ask them questions. And again, I want to end with this quote, is to judge each day in sales, in your LMI business, not by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. You never know what's going to grow from it. And with that, thank you all so much. Sorry, I went 2 minutes over, but thank you for letting me spend some time with you. If there's any questions, anything else I can do, I have no plans. It's late at night, so I can stay. But any questions or anything before we wrap up?
Well, thank you. Excellent metaphors and just hold on and ask if anybody has questions, please. Anybody would like to say something? Yeah, here's here. And that's for metaphor, Jonah. I don't have the question. I just want to say we are into farming big time.
Thank you.
Yes, we have Satya from MIT.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. So what I need you to do, if you don't mind, whenever they ask the question, can someone say it not in a microphone right into the laptop so I can hear it?
Yeah.
Because from the microphone, it's coming from a speaker probably behind. So I'm having a hard time hearing. Yep. Okay. So Pierre, will you repeat the question to me, please?
Yes, do you hear me, Jonah?
Thank you. Yeah, I hear you well.
Can you hear me?
I have to repeat it into the computer.
Uh, why doesn't this?
No, but the sound is going wrong. Like, Jonah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's way better. Way better. Thank you.
Hi, Jonah. I'm Satya.
Yes, good to see you.
Okay, so when you select the process of farming starts with selecting the seeds. Now, how do you identify the right kind of seeds and the right quality of seeds?
Really good question. Um, yeah, so I'll go back to my farming analogy. It's not a perfect one, but what I would say is if I was new to an area, right, or I was a new farmer or something like that, what would I do? I'd probably talk to all the other farmers around town, read some articles about the local farming community, whatever, and I would say, what grew well? What's growing well right now? I would look at the weather forecast. How much rain are we going to get? I'm going to look at what's happening externally. I'm going to look at what's growing. I'm going to look at the market. What does the market need right now as far as like what crops are people buying for what price? We'll look at all those things. So how does that apply to our business? Before I buy my seeds, I'm not going to buy, seeds for corn or beans or whatever. I don't care that no one wants it. I don't care that it doesn't grow well. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do it this way. No. I'm going to see what's growing well, who's buying, right? What price are people buying it at? And then I'm going to find out, based on my personality, based on the land that I have, what can I do to make that happen? So for you, I would look at, okay, in the local community around me, what's been working already? What can I learn from that? What companies are booming in the area right now? And kind of go down, just look externally first, and then also align it with your personal values and say, based on that, am I excited about these things? And an example of that is during 2020, 2021, 2022, it was really interesting. In LMI, you saw some businesses just nosedive in LMI and not make hardly any sales. You saw others like skyrocket. And it was like, well, what was the difference? One of the big differences was people who sold to the tech industry did really well, and people who banked on the tourism industry did really poorly. It's like, well, duh. Like, of course, there's no tourism industry when the country's locked down. And the tech industry was booming, like Zoom and Salesforce and CRM systems and all these things. So the people that sold in one of the hardest times to sell globally ever, where the people said, okay, based on these insane obstacles, something has to be booming right now. What is it? Oh, it's the tech industry because everyone's working from home. So they just started finding all these companies and selling to them, and it worked really well. So look where the opportunities are. Ask other people in your LMI business, hey, what's growing well? What have you been able to harvest recently? And then apply that through your personal mission statement, through your values, what motivates you, and figure out what quote unquote seeds you would need to plant. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
We have one more question for you.
Okay, one more. Yeah.
Hi, Jonah.
Hey,
Hi. How's life?
it's great. I've got boys that are sleeping and a wife that's sleeping and college football on right after this. So I'm doing well.
So it's going to be a perfect day, right? Yeah.
It's perfect.
What would you, might be a quite negative question perhaps, but what do you think are the most important hinders? What hinders us from planting the right seeds and making it grow and harvest? What are we, what's the biggest or most important obstacles?
Yeah. I don't know if you'll like my answer, but I used to so I've been with LMI only for like 6.5, it's almost been 7 years. So I don't know nearly as much about LMI as a lot of people, but I can say from my perspective, since I've come into the business, I always thought there had to be a reason that some people didn't sell and some people did. And I've been looking for that reason, and it's been two things pretty much every time. So there might be an outlier out there. If there is, I have not seen it. So I'm still only 6.5 years, so who knows? But from what I've seen, it's always one of two things. One, the person doesn't actually love what we do, and they're not a product of the product. So they get into sales interviews, and they don't actually believe in what they're selling. And so they're not like, no, 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 this person needs this. So they'll be told, they'll face a stall or an objection. They'll say, all right, this interview's over. Okay, on to the next one. We'll have all these sales interviews and there's no pushback at all. They don't try to overcome any stalls or objections ever. So that's one of the big ones, and that's a belief issue. Because if I believe, no, 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 this works, you should buy this. I don't care what you say until you tell me flat out, no, we are not buying this. I'm like, all right, well, let's figure out a way because you need this. So I see that that's an issue, but on and on and on. That's one. The second one, and again, I apologize that this is negative, but I can't think of another way to say it, is we're just lazy, just laziness. And who would be the worst farmer in the world? A farmer that doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning and go farm. Like, you can know everything about farming, but if you don't go farm, if you don't go out when it's raining, when it's cold, when it's hot, when your tractor breaks down, you're not going to grow anything. You have to go out when no one else is going out to do it, when no one wants to go do it. So people I see that's selling LMI in a farming perspective, like, it's cold, wet, and rainy outside and windy, and they're like, I gotta go, I gotta do it. So maybe it's a time when I'm not sure people are going to buy right now. The economy's, we're having inflation right now or whatever. There's some people that just roll over and wait for things to get better, which they never do. There's always another issue that arises if one gets solved. Those people kind of roll up their sleeves to some extent, say, I just got to do it. I got to make it happen. And they've got that attitude of, one, I've got to make it happen because I believe that this works. And the solution to a lot of these problems is literally what I'm selling. So it's a belief thing. It's a work ethic thing. And I wish you like a hard skill, like if you just do this and practice it enough, you'll be fine. But I really think it's mostly mental. It's getting out of bed and before you do anything else, calling someone, because I'm going to start my day with the thing I don't want to do the most and doing that thing first. And I wish I had a different answer, but I really think that's it. I really do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
Thank you, Jonah. We are super excited. We'll have a super start of the day, and I'd like everybody to figure this out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We came blessed.
Great. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Love spending time with you. And I would love if you could somehow get a picture of everyone in the room together right after this session. I do want to share that on LinkedIn and tag as many of you as possible. So if someone could get a picture of that so I can share it, that would be awesome.
We'll send that to you. We'll take a picture.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.